Welcome to Make It Rain with Adam Schein on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Monday edition of Make It Rain with Adam Schein here on VSiN, and my goodness, we have so much to do today. One of the great Mondays in all of sports, Monday after the NFL draft. We are absolutely fired up. We've got NBA to get into today, some National Hockey League postseason. We're going to give you our 5 favorite NFL drafts. We're going to give you 3 teams that, frankly, I think fell short of where they should be in terms of the NFL draft and how that's going to impact wins and losses and over-under for the upcoming NFL season. We have so much to do today. These are the kind of days that you absolutely live for sports content and conversation and sports gambling. And let's start with, obviously, the news of the weekend. Shedeur Sanders, my goodness. And it was absolutely positively crazy what transpired with Shedeur. The fact that he fell out of the first round, that was believable. The fact that Shedeur Sanders fell out of day number 2 of the draft, that was crazy. The fact that Shedeur Sanders ended up going day 3, round 5, pick 144, that was insane. And honestly, I think there's a lot to get into here. Number one, I think it's pretty crystal clear that when it was all said and done, that NFL executives liked him. They weren't necessarily enamored with him. And I think that there were a lot of people who felt that he was more Andy Dalton than superstar. And that's where it starts in terms of evaluation. And, you know, we compared him to Kirk Cousins, and still do, by the way. And Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round pick. And, you know, I had other people tell me that, you know, he would be Dak Prescott as a high end. And Dak Prescott was a 4th-round pick. Andy Dalton, 2nd-round pick. Jimmy Garoppolo, 2nd-round pick. Derek Carr, 2nd-round pick. And I think that for Shedeur, if you're a player that the NFL and NFL talent evaluators like, but you're not gaga over, and there's so much noise that goes into it. And, you know, you go to the East-West Shrine game instead of the Senior Bowl, you don't play the game, and you don't work out at the Combine, and you bomb a slew of Combine interviews, and you're interviewing coaches and GMs as opposed to the reverse, and you're wearing headphones, and the music is blasting through, and you're not focused on it. And as our friend Tom McShay said, you had a whiteboard segment, an install segment with Brian Daboll of the Giants, and you bombed it and didn't like the fact that, you know, Daboll called you out on it. And go back to Hard Knocks last year, those Daboll sessions with Drake May and with Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, they're no joke. And, you know, if you're not ready for it, that's a problem. Now, I also think you factor that in, plus who his dad is and the noise his dad makes and social media. And, you know, there were teams that I'm sure if you thought a player was going to be okay or not a starter, you didn't want to deal with the noise. And, you know, it's sad in a lot of ways for Shedeur that he fell to the 5th round. I thought that was crazy. I think he should have gone in day number 2. I will say the Cleveland Browns completely clueless how they attacked this. And, you know, I like Dylan Gabriel. I'm on record saying that to you guys. I liked him more than most people. And when they picked Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, I was like, that's fantastic. You know, then taking someone like Shedeur Sanders in the 5th round, come on, that shows there's absolutely no plan and there's no clue in any way, shape, or form. So I think that when you look at it from a Shedeur standpoint, you know, and he said everything right when he talked to the media in Cleveland on that conference call after he was picked. He said everything right. I loved it. I love how he talked about helping the kids in the community. He's going to work. And, you know, then he went out and had a party and celebrated Validate. And that's great. But maybe you don't do that in July when you're about to be QB4. Now, I want you to take a look at the Browns quarterbacks coming up for this upcoming season. You could actually go to DraftKings today and wager on this. And it's interesting when you see the odds, right? And take Deshaun Watson out of the equation. He's injured. I don't think he'll ever play again for the Cleveland Browns. Listen, Shedeur Sanders will enter as QB4. Kenny Pickett is not exactly an all-pro caliber quarterback. Joe Flacco, they already got rid of him in Cleveland, and obviously he's, certainly up there in age. And I like Dylan Gabriel a lot. Side by side, I think you put Sanders next to Gabriel. I mean, I like Dylan Gabriel a lot. I think sure Sanders is a better prospect. And I've compared Sanders to Kirk Cousins, and, they're going to be coached by Kevin Stefanski, who maximized, obviously, Kirko when they went together in Minnesota. So I do think Sanders landed in a good place for him. I think he's going to have to, really to make sure there's limited noise around him. I mean, I don't know who was running the Browns war room. Was it Paul DePodesta's famous computer? Was it, the homeless person who told Jimmy Haslam to ultimately draft Johnny Manziel and save the city? I mean, they showed that video in the war room when they drafted him. I mean, looked like they were being held hostage. I mean, that was not good in any way, shape, or form. And, they looked like they had just sucked on a lemon, not celebrating a draft pick. So I think it's pretty clear that came from the owner and not from the coach and the general manager. Before anyone says, well, hold on, teams have always drafted two quarterbacks in the same draft, you see that with first rounders and then later picks, obviously Drake May and Joe Milton. And you obviously saw that when you take a look at everything that transpired with Kenny Pickett and a quarterback in Pittsburgh a few years ago. Even RG3 and Kirk Cousins, or, Troy Aikman and Walsh from the supplemental draft. We have a third rounder and a fifth rounder. That's by accident. That's without a plan. So, Shador fell because, I think that there were a lot of teams that thought he was limited. I think he clearly fell because he and his dad botched the entire pre-draft process. So, Sanders now has a chance, a golden opportunity to rewrite his history. He's got to make sure he focuses on ball, acts like QB4, and I do think he landed in a really good spot, even though this was the most wild and unprecedented ride I've ever seen for a prospect when you look at the NFL draft. So nonstop, obviously, today on the NFL draft, and I thought for sure that the Steelers would take someone like Shedeur Sanders, and they didn't take a quarterback until they picked Will Howard. And even if they sign Aaron Rodgers, Steelers have absolutely botched this. Take a look at the Steelers draft class, and, honestly, they had opportunities to take Shedeur. I absolutely would have taken him. Caleb Johnson is a solid back. I like Jack Sawyer a lot out of Ohio State. I am not a Will Howard fan. And then you see the over-under here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And even if I would never touch this, right? I mean, right now, Mason Rudolph is the quarterback. If they get Aaron Rodgers, they might hit the over. But they're not going to be in position to win a playoff game. They won a playoff game in the 2016 regular season. This whole thing is just very disappointing for Steeler Nation and the great Steelers fans. And I really wish they would have addressed what they needed to address. Will Howard is not the answer. It does not solve anything here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very disappointing with the Steelers not taking a quarterback, not taking Shedeur Sanders higher in this draft. Cowboys and Bears had solid drafts, but neither one addressed the running back position high in the draft. And honestly, that's a disappointment. The Dallas Cowboys, take a look at their draft class. It was good. It was good. I like the edge that they got out of BC. Booker, obviously, is a mammoth road grader with an edge to him. And, they picked blue out of Texas, but I think Cowboys fans are blue when they stare at their running back depth chart. And on the heels of last year, and then eschewing running backs in free agency this year, I'm not talking about Javonte Williams, I'm talking about real running backs. There were running backs there. I mean, I would have taken Hampton at 12 or, found a way to trade up and get big-time running back in the second round or the third round. There was a lot of really good running backs in this draft. So very disappointed what I saw from Dallas. And then you take a look at Chicago. And if you notice, the Chicago Bears consistently traded back in this draft because it felt like they were about to draft the running back on numerous occasions, and then they weren't prepped for the Ohio State running backs flying off the board early in the second, and then Scatterboo in the fourth, and they just were not ready here when it was all said and done. Very disappointed as you take a look at the Bears draft class, and I love Loveland, and we stress that, obviously, and I would still bet the over without question. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams addressed the offensive line brilliantly, got a receiver. Again, the tight end's fantastic, but very disappointed. Listen, Ben Johnson had Swift in Detroit. They threw him out. Very disappointed and surprised the Bears did not ultimately get a starting running back in the NFL draft. Now, I want to give you my 5 favorite drafts in the NFL draft. Patriots, Raiders, Giants, Chiefs, Seahawks. These are the drafts that I would grade A+. First, the Patriots. I am absolutely obsessed. Will Campbell, tremendous. Travion Henderson is an absolute steal. I thought he'd go in the first round. Kyle Williams, my sleeper wide receiver. Plus, Mike Vrabel's coaching up this team. They got some special teams help, which I absolutely love. Bet the over on the New England Patriots for this season. Obsessed with the Raiders. Ashton Genty's the Rookie of the Year. Love the Jack Beck selection. Reliable hands. They got a couple of future starting offensive linemen. Address the defense. Bet the over for the Raiders for this upcoming season. Giants absolutely dominated. Abdul Carter, sensational. Jackson Dart, sensational. Talked about that on Friday. Scatterboo, are you kidding me? He's going to help the Giants hit the over of 5.5. Don't sleep on the Chiefs. Josh Simmons is going to start on the offensive line, and this Jalen Royal selection was phenomenal. He grades out to be Rashee Rice. I'm telling you, that's one of those moves you say, how the hell did Kansas City get him? And then the defensive players in between. And I'm obsessed with the Seahawks. Love Gray Zabel. Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round was absolutely incredible. Insurance in case Darnold doesn't hit. He will see the field and run the ball effectively. The Seahawks had a tremendous draft. John Schneider doing special things once again.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Derby Day is almost here. Why not make your first bet your best bet? With First Bet, you can wager on Churchill Downs, Belmont Park, and tracks all around the world, all from your phone. Go to firstbet.com. That's the number 1, stbet.com. Enter the promo code VSiN2000 for a $200 sign-up bonus. Don't miss out. Bet smarter on the Derby with firstbets.com. Welcome back. Make It Rain with Adam Schein. Joining us right now live on the Progressive Guest Line. You know him. You love him. My guy, Rhett Lewis, of course, critically acclaimed host on the NFL Network and SiriusXM. Rhett, how are you, my friend?
Oh, Adam, man, I am so fired up, man. I'm still riding the high. The draft is my favorite weekend on the NFL calendar. It is the most hopeful weekend of the year. I used to sneak out of 6th grade biology just to go fill out mock drafts down in New Orleans, probably because that was our Super Bowl when I was growing up. So I love the draft, always have, and fired up to go over this with you, man.
Yeah, same. Listen, I'm draft obsessed. I watch every pick. I'm a junkie just like you. And, first and foremost, let's start with the biggest topic, right? Shedeur Sanders falling to day number 3. And Shedeur falling to the second day was not necessarily stunning. I was floored, though, by what transpired, by the fact that he fell to round 5. What was your reaction? Why did it happen? And what do you think now of the fit and the pick that he goes to Cleveland?
Well, a couple things, right? Because it is, it's a loaded question. There's a lot of layers to this thing. The first overall is the analogy that keeps coming back to me is if you've ever bought or sold a home, the seller sets the price. The buyer sets the value. And while you can say all you want that you are the best quarterback and the top quarterback and should be first overall pick or first round, the NFL will tell you. And the NFL told them the value was not a first round caliber. I do think that then is where you started to run into some of the meeting stuff, some of the interview stuff, some of the camera crew and entourage and all of that. I think that's where you began to understand that teams were a little hesitant to have the biggest storyline on their team be a guy they hope never sees the field, which is a backup quarterback, right? I mean, like that's what you're talking about there when it comes down to brass tacks. I think the guy is a really productive college quarterback that just didn't have the elite traits of some of the other quarterbacks that we've seen go. And the third part of it, it's demand. Shedeur Sanders was the sixth quarterback off the board in this draft at pick number 144. Last year, there were 6 quarterbacks off the board in the first 12 picks. There was just a limited amount of teams that were going to be in the market for his services to begin with, and all of that really played a role in this, Adam.
I think you summed it up perfectly, Red. I'm curious to get your take on a different note on the Jacksonville Jaguars trading up for Travis Hunter, because you want to talk about a great young general manager making the ultimate big swing with a Ruthian blast to trade up for, well, the Babe Ruth of the NFL draft. I loved every single second of that from a Jaguar perspective.
Oh, man, so cool. And good for James Gladstone, right? Good for the Jacksonville Jaguars, for Duval County, for that entire organization to have some electricity, some energy infused into it with what James did. And then the pick he made. Remember what he said at his introductory press conference? We are going to acquire players that we believe to be intangibly rich and will raise the level of this franchise by being nothing more than who they are. That is Travis Hunter. A first-round pick as a wide receiver, a first-round pick as a corner. So you got no hesitation in giving up a first-round pick to go ahead and move up to take him, because he is a true 2-for-1. I think he is, right off the bat, is getting up to speed with Liam Cohen's offense and is ingrained and immersed in becoming the best receiver he can be for Trevor Lawrence, who they invested all that money in and have to get him to an elite level. He helps them do that. I think that's where they start. And then they start building him up on defense as much as he can handle a little bit at a time. But what a home run of a pick, a unique player, a rare player in a draft that just didn't have a ton of those blue chip type talents.
100%. They really didn't have a lot of sizzle in this draft, and Hunter is special, and the buzz in Jacksonville is amazing. Now, I was kind of obsessed. I laid out my 5 favorite drafts to start the show, Red. Obsessed with New England. I thought the Patriots absolutely cleaned up. Round 1, day 2. I mean, I'm obsessed with Mike Vrabel as a head coach. I'm starting to get giddy about the Patriots, the over win total 8.5. What was your grade? What was your take on the Patriots in their draft?
A++++. Like, it's just, Mike Vrabel is the type of coach that was not going to be overly obsessed with the fact that Will Campbell's arm length was 32 5/8 inches and 3/8 inches shorter than the median line for the standard. Like, come on. The question is, does the guy get dudes blocked? And the answer is yes. And Vrabel is going to love that dude's mentality, his toughness, his football character, his IQ, and his ability to protect Drake May. So he was a terrific pick right there. And then the fact that they got Travion Henderson as the 4th running back off the board, 2 picks after his buddy Quinshon Judkins went to the Browns, slam dunk, home run, lock it in. This dude is going to be a star in New England, and not just because he can hit the home run with the ball in his hands, but because he will hit you like the freaking torpedo bat that they're using in Yankee Stadium. Like, that's what he will do as a pass protector for Drake May. So make no mistake, that helps your rookie quarterback stay upright as well, even when you're not getting him the football. Love that. I love the sentimentality of, parting ways with a longtime center, David Andrews, undrafted out of Georgia. You go back and you get the most athletic center in this class, also from Georgia, in Jared Wilson. They went and got the kicker, Borregales from Miami. I think it was the best in the draft. So much to like about the way that this thing ended up working out for New England.
Absolutely loved it. I thought it was tremendous in every possible way. And I was also obsessed with the Raiders. You can tell that it's a new day, new direction, new brass, new coach, new general manager. What was your read on what the Raiders brought to the table for this draft?
Incredible franchise synergy in 3 months since they've all been together.
Yeah.
I thought this was awesome. This represented both Pete Carroll's vision for now and for the future, and then it merged with the stuff that has made John Spytek a candidate worthy of being a GM in the last couple of years. And he comes from Tampa Bay, where they have been one of the best in the league at drafting and developing offensive line talent. Look no further than Graham Barton last year. And by the way, I felt like this picks 98 and 99 back-to-back in the 3rd round were kind of like John's area of expertise here. Caleb Rogers, versatile player out of Texas Tech, who started at right guard, at right tackle, at center, kind of everywhere. Charles Grant then major upside from William and Mary. They go back-to-back with offensive linemen after taking Ashton Genty, who's going to have 300-plus carries and be the odds-on favorite to be the rookie of the year in the NFL. And then they get maybe one of my favorite players overall in Jack Besh with their second-round pick. Incredibly just heart-wrenching story, of tragedy, but also of resilience in what he did after his brother's death down at the Senior Bowl. And then he is a contested catch monster. Like, this is a big-time football dude. If Pete Carroll talks about compete, Adam, this dude is the picture of that competition. And then lastly, stop me if you've heard this before, Pete Carroll drafts a player, a long-levered cornerback who began his collegiate career as a wide receiver. And they did that with Darian Porter. Worked really well for Richard Sherman. Darian Porter out of Iowa State has also blocked 5 kicks in his career, is going to be a menace on special teams.
I think you nailed it. Yeah, I'm really fired up.
Hey,
this Raider draft class.
Adam, and by the way, you remember J.J. Pegues, the defensive tackle?
Yeah.
21 rushes at 300-plus pounds. 18 of his 21 rushes were for first downs or touchdowns. If you might recall, there was a head coach that had a little bit of an issue down on the goal line at the Super Bowl. Not an issue anymore. Hand it off to Pegues.
By the way, I don't know that anyone ever, and in the last 20 years, I want to keep a conversation going because there's so much positive going on with the Raiders and the draft.
That's right.
I'm with you, Rhett. Right. There's so much to love. Day 1, day 2, day 3. I'm obsessed. I think they're going to be pretty good. Now, the odds are out for the Rookie of the Year on offense. We have a minute to go.
Yes,
look, I'm already on record saying I'm going to take Genty as my pick, and he's the odds-on favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. You share that vision? Is there someone else? You look at Marion Hampton. You're looking at someone like Travis Hunter. Are you looking at Tyler Shough from New Orleans? Who else would you consider here?
Oh, yeah, I think Tyler Shough is in line to start day 1 in New Orleans, so he's going to have the inside track there. And then Cam Ward, obviously. I think, quarterbacks are always going to have the easiest path to the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. So I would say, the best competition for Genty at this point is probably Cam Ward, because I do expect him to start there in Tennessee after being the number 1 overall pick. Dark horse, I would say, is Teteroa McMillan from Carolina. There was a little bit of back and forth about what he was going to be good at in the league and the way he presented himself as a prospect. But I think that he's going to get a ton of targets from Bryce Young, who continues to trend line upwards for Carolina.
I love it, Rhett. You're the best. Keep up the great work. We appreciate the time, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
The NBA playoffs are here, and so is the VSiN Killer Sports NBA Playoff Challenge. We've invited 15 sharp minds from the world of VSiN and Killer Sports to go head-to-head, making 38 picks each from the start of the playoffs all the way through the NBA Finals. That's a total of 570 NBA playoff picks, all available to the VSiN Pro subscribers. Picks are locked in 1 hour before each day of the game, so you all have the fresh insights into guiding your bets every step of the postseason. Right now, you get a full VSiN Pro access through August the 1st at $59. Don't miss this playoff edge. Head on over to VSiN.com/subscribe to sign up today. And with that said, welcome back. Make It Rain with Adam Schein. It's time to shine on the NBA playoffs. And listen, the postseason has been incredible. The television ratings are way up. And look, I can even admit this as a diehard Knicks fan. If I am a Pistons fan, I am sick. Because the end of that game, and I tweeted this at Adam Schein in real time, in moment, clearly Hart fouled Hardaway on that final shot at the end. Clearly that was the case. Now, there were plenty of moments where you had an opportunity, if you're the Detroit Pistons, to go ahead and win this game. And, if I'm a Pistons fan, I'm thrilled that Cade Cunningham at 25 and 10 and 10, and he's a superstar. But he also missed 2 shots and had that turnover within the final minute 7 of the game. Now, obviously, you credit, of course, Karl Anthony Towns. That 27 for the three-pointer was an absolute bomb. He had 27 points in the game. That baseline fadeaway, I still don't know how he hit that shot. Cat, the big bodega. This guy was unbelievable. I loved every single second of it, and my goodness, that was just incredible on every single level. I thought that was remarkable. He was assertive. He was sensational. Jalen Brunson got hurt. He came back and was a force of nature in that fourth quarter for my Knicks. 32 points, 11 assists for Jalen Brunson. Listen, there was a foul and that impacted the game, and if I'm a Pistons fan, instead of 2-2, it's 3-1. Now, there are other things that you could have done differently. Obviously, first of all, they were calling it, letting him play, and calling it consistently all game. That's number one. Number two, Cunningham with the turnovers and the missed shots at the end. Number three, end of the third quarter, the Pistons forced a steal, and Schroeder tried to go all alley-oop and, dunk contest. Instead of laying it in at the buzzer at the end of the quarter, that cost them 2 points. They lost by 1. That's kind of a killer here if you're the Detroit Pistons and a Pistons fan. I love JB Bickerstaff. He's turned everything around for Detroit. He would have been number 2 on my list for the Coach of the Year. He used his challenge in the first quarter and didn't have one the rest of the game. Not that you could challenge at the end there, but, just there were other moments, other opportunities to challenge. So that was certainly disappointing, no question about it, from a Detroit standpoint. Listen, I'll never get over that if I'm a Pistons fan. They had opportunities to win. They jumped out to a monster lead. Then the Pistons were able to keep it close with a fury at the end of the second quarter, which was huge. Then the Pistons grossly outplayed the Knicks and had a chance to bury them. Couldn't do it. Brunson and Towns, as we mentioned, unbelievable. Bridges had those 2 big threes. Hart had a really strong game. And that is a brutal loss for Detroit and a monster win, even with the controversy, obviously, for my Knicks. So we were right about the Knicks, dead wrong about the Lakers. I'm stunned. I'm disappointed. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I was really, really just confused, flummoxed. I could not believe J.J. Redick didn't play his bench. LeBron had a nice game with the points, and Luka Doncic the same after he had the stomach bug the night before. Frankly, and I was wrong. I thought the Lakers would win Friday night. Wrong. Thought the Lakers would win yesterday. Wrong. I thought the Lakers, when they had that great spurt and played brilliantly to start the third, they'd be in cruise control. Wrong. Throughout the entire course of the fourth quarter, I thought they would ultimately win. Wrong. And Redick really deserves the blame. He didn't go to the bench. That was crazy. Absolutely insane. So very disappointing that was the case with regards to the LA Lakers. And man, I really, at the end of the day, was frustrated from a Laker fan perspective. I was very, very frustrated. I thought they would be able to at least knot this puppy up. 2-2 monster difference between 2-2 and 3-1. And it was all there for Los Angeles. And Anthony Edwards, 43 points, able to hit those free throws at the end. Great stuff from Randall, DiVincenzo, McDaniels. How they didn't go to Jared Vanderbilt at all in that second half when Minnesota's crushing them on the boards, I'll never know. Bitter disappointment when you take a look at what transpired. And the Lakers are on the brink, and they lose in the first round. Season is an absolute failure. No other way to phrase it. I'm still buzzing about the Nuggets and the Clippers and what happened on Saturday. That was one of the greatest fourth quarters and finishes to a playoff game I've ever seen. Shades of Jimmy V at NC State years ago. 101-99. Absolutely, positively crazy. That was amazing. That was wild. And Aaron Gordon, nobody boxed out at the end. Jokic with the 3. I thought that the putback by Zubac would turn out to be the game winner. That was not the case. And my goodness, that was wild. And at first I thought it was a little bit late. They ruled it good. Then at the end of the day, when you look at what transpired on the replay, you couldn't overturn whatever it was. Probably Gordon got it off in time. Either way, you couldn't go against the initial ruling on the court. So there we are when it comes to everything that happened. That was wild. That was crazy. That was zany. And my goodness, Nuggets Clippers was always the best series before the postseason started. And the fact that it's tied right now at 2 is amazing. I thought when the Clippers came back and they were down big on Saturday, and Steve Ballmer's going, the owner's going nuts, and the fans are going nuts. I mean, the whole thing was just incredible. And I thought they'd be in position to go up 3-1 and it would be in the bank. Now, I still like the Clippers. Said the Clippers in 7 when it started. I'll stay with Clippers in 7. But now we officially have a series. So buckle up, Buttercup. How about the Celtics and the Magic? And how about Jason Tatum? And Orlando played really well. KCP, I don't know what the hell he was doing, on that 4-on-1, trying to, do all the trickeration, go behind the back. That was a huge turning point at the end of the second quarter. And the Inside the NBA crew was rightly upset with KCP. That was weird, man. I mean, that was really, really bizarre in every possible way. So, listen, Jason Tatum was remarkable again. He was fabulous, phenomenal in crunch time. Great when it mattered the most. 37 points, 14 of 14 from the charity stripe, 14 rebounds. Another monster performance from our guy, Jason Tatum. Loved every single second of that from a Celtics standpoint. Brutal news for Damian Lillard, as our friend Shams Charania has reported that it's a torn ACL, a torn Achilles, and Damian Lillard is done. And that's brutal. Pacers take a 3-1 series lead on the Milwaukee Bucks, and Game 4 last night, once you saw what transpired with Dame, torn Achilles early in that game. I mean, it changed everything, just flipped on a dime. So really disappointed with everything that happened from a health standpoint with Damian Lillard. And Indiana is going to eventually win this series and take care of business, and they will advance when it's all said and done. One more win, and they'll go to the next round. I'm sure they'll win the next game. The Bucks look defeated. I mean, we're getting to the point of wondering where Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to demand a trade. That's where we're at right now, mentally and going into the crystal ball when it comes to the Milwaukee Bucks. Cavs are looking to bust out the brooms tonight, and I think they're going to absolutely beat the Heat. I think they're going to smoke Miami. This team is amazing. This team deserves, to me, even more love in terms of being the favorite in the Eastern Conference. They're favored by 8.5 points, taking on Miami. And listen, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are tremendous. I think they'll win tonight. I think they'll cover the spread tonight. And I expect the Cavs to be ultimately rewarded for their phenomenal coaching and their versatility with a sweep of the Miami Heat, as we predicted before this series started. And look, we picked the Warriors to beat the Rockets. How they won on Saturday, to me, was noteworthy. I mean, Steph Curry, take a bow. No Jimmy Butler, no problem. Never take what we see from Steph Curry for granted on a night-in, night-out basis. Warriors looking to take a 3-1 series lead tonight. I think the Rockets are cooked. I think the Rockets are fried. I'd be surprised. They're young. They're talented, but they don't have the requisite playoff experience, and they're taking on Steph. I'd be surprised if they were able to get off the mat here. So very, very, very impressed with Golden State. I thought that the Butler injury would be more of a factor. Steph is an all-timer. You can take your list. He's a top 10 guy. He's an absolute megastar, top 10 in the history of the sport. And I'd be surprised if the Warriors lost tonight at home, taking on the Houston Rockets.
You're watching Make It Rain on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Edge Boost is the first ever bank account built for bettors, ensuring all gambling transactions are approved. No usage fees, no minimums. Earn cash back rewards. 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at edgeboost.bet with the promo code RAIN. Deposit $25 and Edge Boost is going to match the deposit. That's edgeboost.bet. Welcome back, Make It Rain with Adam Schein. Time right now for our news, notes, nuggets, and nightly plays. And we still have more draft takes and content I want to get into and how it relates to the upcoming season. And sports betting. And especially, the Saints might have drafted their week one starter at quarterback in Tyler Shuck, and it's noteworthy they picked him over Shedeur Sanders. And, they had a really strong draft in New Orleans, and they picked the tackle out of Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. You could take that one to the banks with that 9th overall pick. And remember, we thought there was a real shot, and I'm telling you, they liked him with Jackson Dart going 9. But I think it was pretty clear the tackles in this draft, the best ones would all go in round 1. It wasn't a lot of phenomenal depth where you see instant starters, and Banks is an instant starter. But you look at Shook and you look at the over-under win total, and we'll see if our guy Derek Carr is going to be able to play. I don't even get the sense that Kellen Moore, the new head coach, quarterback guru, loves Derek Carr anyway. So I think that we are looking at Tyler Shuck realistically being given an opportunity to start, if not being the favorite. And I'll tell you, 6.5 is a low number. And the over at plus 125 just wins 7, baby. Not exactly what the late great Al Davis once said, but for our betting purposes, yeah, that might be something that's worthy of conversation. So going with the over for the New Orleans Saints for this upcoming season, I think makes a ton of sense. So you had Shook go to the New Orleans Saints. How about Quinn Ewers going to the Miami Dolphins? That was interesting. A couple of things on Quinn Ewers. Obviously, I was not a fan of his in terms of the draft and the draft process. I said there's no chance he goes in round 1, no chance he goes on day 2. And I thought he would go in the 5th or 6th round. He went in the 7th, and that's fine. I do think for him, he ended up in a good situation. Mike McDaniel, even though I have questions about him as a real head coach, look, he's a quarterback whisperer. He's a savant. He obviously does a lot of great things at the quarterback position. So I really think that when you look at it here, it'll be something, supremely positive to be in a position for Ewers where Tua Tagovailoa, sadly, injury is a part of his equation. And obviously, Zach Wilson's the backup, and he's terrible at professional football. But I didn't think this was a great draft. I know people get on Ewers. Well, if he transferred, he could have, made $2 to $4 million, NIL, go play somewhere else in college, be a higher draft pick. I would have done that. I don't know if it's anyone else's place to tell Quinn Ewers how to spend his adult life. I do think he ended up in a good spot for him. I do really like the under here in terms of 8.5 wins, minus 135. That would be my play without question. Look, there's a shot the Miami Dolphins finish in last place. To me, right now, and it's early, schedule release in a few weeks in the NFL, I think that we are looking at the Buffalo Bills draw the line. I'm telling you right now, Patriots number 2 in the AFC East, Jets number 3, Dolphins number 4. That's how I would rank it when you look at the AFC East. The Philadelphia Eagles drafted my guy Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. How cool is this, by the way? And I thought McCord would go in the 3rd or 4th round. He fell to the 7th. Kyle McCord grew up in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, went to the same high school that Rich Gannon went to, grew up as an Eagles fan, and obviously went to Ohio State, then went to my alma mater, Syracuse, played brilliantly. Classic Eagles draft here. Howie Roseman, take a bow. Howie Roseman wins the Howie Roseman Invitational, as he always does. And, man, this was great. This was absolutely great. I mean, Campbell, an absolute stud, great depth and talent. The safety back out of Texas, a really good prospect. And, they beef up the offensive line, the defense, really strong stuff here. No surprise from Howie Roseman in the Howie Roseman Invitational. Let's sprinkle in some hockey and some baseball to finish up this sizzling edition of Make It Rain with Adam Schein. And shh, don't tell anyone, because we're not going to jinx this. And the Blues really should have won the first and the second game. They had it, they blew it, they lost it. Don't tell anyone that the Blues and the Jets are tied at 2. Don't tell anyone, because we picked the Blues, we bet the Blues, and an 8-1 to win this series. I'm not telling the guys in our Vegas studio or our producer Michael Cohen to have Gloria clued up for, and that was obviously, the song that they started singing, a few years ago when they won the Stanley Cup. I'm not telling the guys in Vegas to cue that puppy up. I'm not doing that. But having said that, are we fired up about the Blues and the fact that they're tied up with the Winnipeg Jets? Yes. Yes, we are. Are we fired up as someone who preseason bet the Oilers to win the Stanley Cup, that this series with the Kings is now tied at 2? Look, there was so much going on in the world of sports that maybe these two things kind of flew under the radar. You know, you had the Kings jumping out to that monster lead, and then the Oilers just stormed back. Leon Draisaitl with the overtime game winner. Are you kidding me? That was incredible here. And take a look at the odds board. I mean, it's basically, for all intents and purposes, a pick 'em, right? Well, we'll stay consistent here with Edmonton to be able to win this series. You know, I think that Edmonton in 7 is still the play. I wouldn't even be surprised to see Edmonton win this thing in 6. I think that's what we're talking about when you look at the Edmonton Oilers and who they are and what they're able to do, and the fact that they were able to bounce back like this and get it done. Man, that was really impressive stuff here. So just a couple of hockey series where we loved the Oilers before the season started. Injuries have been a factor. You know, to win the Stanley Cup, seemingly left for dead by a lot of the puckheads and the critics and the haters and the Twitter tough guys and the media elite. Excellent job, the fact that they were able to come back and take care of business. And those Blues, baby, just saying, those Blues. Sprinkling some baseball for tonight, as obviously, you know, the draft is in the rearview mirror. And you look at the betting slate, some interesting ones to bet on tonight. One more game between the Mets and the Nationals. That's going to start moments after us. And it's interesting. Washington has been able to take a couple of games in this series. You know, obviously, we can get into the triple play and the bad call on Friday. We can get into Mets having a monster lead and blowing it yesterday. You know, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Nats grab another one. It's Canning versus Williams tonight, and I'm not going to bet it, but that money line to me is noteworthy at plus 140. Yankees, Orioles in Baltimore tonight. And boy, the Orioles have just been flat out dreadful to start the season. Told you before the season started, I did not like Baltimore to make the playoffs. Stunned that Vegas had the Orioles as a top 3 favorite for the American League. I thought that was crazy. It's tough to bet on the Yankees when Will Warren's on the bump, but they're favored in Vegas for a reason. The Yankees always play well in Baltimore. The Orioles are just a disaster. I'll take the Yankees tonight, minus 130. And how about this? We got the Tigers and the Astros. Little A.J. Hinch reunion game. Captain Jack is on the mound tonight for Detroit. Basically a pick'em for all intents and purposes in Vegas tonight. We will certainly roll with Detroit to take care of business on the road in Houston. Folks, it's time right now to give out our best bets. Best bets are brought to you by G-Bank, official bank of Visa. G-Bank is upping the ante with up to $750 bonus for new G-Bank Visa Signature Card customers. First, new customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within 90 days from account opening receive a $250 bonus. In addition, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads, within 30 days of the account opening, you'll receive another $500 bonus. That's potentially a $750 bonus. Apply now at VSiN.com/GBank, VSiN.com/GBank. It is subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions apply. For our Monday best bets, let's go with the Cavs team total. Over 109.5 at minus 118. The Cavs have just been trucking the Miami Heat. You know, these are not your fathers or your older brothers' Miami Heat. How about this in the games this series? Game 1, 121. Game 2, 121. Game 3, 124. So we will go with the Cavs over 109.5 minus 118. Right after us, it's Follow the Money with Mitch and Paulie at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I can't wait for the guys. Then it's going to be VSiN Primetime with Matty Humans and Will Hill. And then stick around for Cashing Outs with Joe Serralo at 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Want to thank all the guys in the Vegas studio. Want to thank our incredible producer, the great Michael Cohen. We will talk to you mañana. Make it rain with Adam Schein.